Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Pinfall Podcast. This is a wrestling podcast where three friends discuss the 1, 2, 3 in the WWE. That's one company, two brands, and three weekly shows. In our first show, we'll be dissecting and discussing what happened at Clash of Champions, but first, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Wilbs, and I'll be the host and the referee when things get heated between these two. I've been watching WWE since the late 1990s going into the early 2000s when Channel 4 had the rights to Heat and Royal Rumble. Triple H versus Cactus Jack is probably still one of my favourite matches, and those two, along with The Rock, Jericho, CM Punk and Edge, are some of my all-time favourites. In the current roster, my favourites include Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Aleister Black, Sami Zayn and Sasha Banks. Each week I'll be joined by Barnsey and Jordan. So, Barnsey, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, pleasure to be on the Pinfall. I'm the older of the two Barnes brothers, and I've probably been watching wrestling now for what seems like a lifetime already. My first memories are the build-up to WrestleMania 14, and I think the first ever show I watched was a segment between The Undertaker and Kane. Kane set a cameraman on fire, and there was pyro and everything, and it was my next door neighbour that was babysitting me, and I just remember thinking once he left the next day, I need to find out where that content is and try and locate what channel it was on. So been a fan for what seems already like a lifetime. Favourite wrestlers of all time for me it's a toss up between Austin and Triple H. In terms of the current roster, my favourites are probably Seth Rollins. I love Drew McIntyre, and then hopefully on the main roster soon we'll be talking about Adam Cole. And I'll pass you to my younger brother now. Here's Jordan.
Yes, I'm Jordan, aka Little Barnsey. Wrestling has been in my life for as long as I can remember due to the heavy influence of Big B over here. Growing up, probably my favourite wrestlers have always been Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels. My favourite match of all time is definitely WrestleMania 17, The Rock and Austin. Promo to finish, I was just on the edge of my seat and just couldn't believe what I was witnessing. And ever since, I've just been a massive fan of the industry, and very, very excited that we are now discussing this and bringing our thoughts and opinions to a wider audience.
Brilliant. So now you know a little bit about us, but now we just want to say why we wanted to start this podcast. The obvious thing to start with is by saying yes, this was a lockdown idea and a project for us. We've been having lots of Zoom calls, we've been working hard to try and get a decent sort of podcast to bring you guys. But there's a little bit more to it than that. Here we are, us three guys, we're approaching our 30s. 20 years ago, we had loads of people we could talk about wrestling with, like friends at school and over by the park. But as you get older, it seems like less and less people are watching wrestling, and you get to a point when you're in your 30s and you haven't really got anyone to talk to about it. So we wanted to introduce a platform with this podcast and our Twitter account where you can listen and tweet people who have the same passion and enjoyment in wrestling as you guys do. So please support our podcast by hitting the subscribe button, by following us on Twitter at the Pinfall Pod, and leave us feedback on what you want to hear from us, and also your views on the points of discussion on today's show. Right, so let's get on with the show. It was Clash of Champions. It went down on the 27th of September from the WWE Thunderdome. Looked like a sellout to me, all them faces in the crowd. The very first match was Sami Zayn defeating Jeff Hardy and AJ Styles to become the new undisputed Intercontinental Champion in a ladder match. Guys, how good was this match?
Cool, for me, I think it's probably maybe the best ladder match of the last decade. I'd put it right up there. I love the spots involved. I like the ending. I just like the creativity from all the wrestlers. The Swanton bomb off the top of the ladder was obviously a highlight, and you got a 43-year-old man standing on top of a ladder, just willing to give everything to continue his redemption story. And obviously he come up a little bit short, but just the camera angle to show the impact, and I just love the match. I love that the outcome of the winner was Sami Zayn. Rightfully, in my opinion, back as the Intercontinental Champion. Obviously, the pandemic, put an end to his reign. But yeah, I was absolutely buzzing that he won, and he's now back as IC champ. What did you think, George?
I mean, I am a massive Sami Zayn fan. The whole build up to this pay-per-view, I never thought he would win. Taking the win on the Smackdown prior to this usually isn't a good sign that he's going to walk away with the belts. So I am so ecstatic he is champion. Since he's been back on Smackdown, he has been absolute gold. I love the angle he's come in with never losing the title, and he's just an absolute star. And I think this sort of feud has just shown what he's capable of. In terms of the match, it was just phenomenal. People talk about the frequency of how ladder matches there are now, and they were able to bring more ingenuity to it with the handcuffs. I thought it was just absolutely brilliant. I thought for a second as well during it, when he tried to get the handcuff on AJ, he wasn't going to take the win, but he got there in the end, and yeah, absolutely buzzing. Definitely for me, match of the night.
Yeah, I thought there were some really good spots in this match. The one where Jeff Hardy was sandwiched between the ladder and then sort of fell from the ring, that looked nasty. Yeah. And also when they handcuffed the ladder to his ear, it didn't look nice. Did not something I'd want to go through. But yeah, top match. So Sami Zayn is the new champion. I mean, Jordan said it earlier. I think we're huge fans of Sami Zayn on this pod. Who do we want to see him face next?
Well, the good thing on SmackDown is at the IC level, there's a load of competitors that he can come up against. Like we've obviously recently had Matt Riddle join the Blue Brand. You wouldn't even mind seeing these three guys again, because I think the chemistry that when they're in the ring together, they bring the best out of each other. They all bring something slightly different, and just in terms of like having a face and a heel, they all complement each other really well. Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, we'll probably touch on it later, but we've got the draft coming up now, so there's opportunities for people from Raw to join SmackDown and take on Sami Zayn. But I think whoever he's in the ring with, because he's such a star, he can cut promos against anyone and obviously produce magnificent in-ring wrestling ability to any competitor. So I don't actually mind who he gets thrown in with. But yeah, whoever it is, I'm sure it's going to be... on a card, he's going to steal the show.
I think I'd just love to see more of him and AJ. I think just give him and AJ a free pay-per-view feud, I'd just be absolute money. I think what speaks for how good AJ and Sami are is they can have Jeff in this ladder match with him and elevate Jeff to what we saw from him back in the early 2000s and really show why he is a legend, and they were able to bring that out of him. So Sami and AJ for me would just be the feud.
Yeah, hopefully we can see that going forward. The next match on the card was Asuka defeating Zelina Vega to retain the Raw Women's Championship when she forced Vega to tap out of the Asuka lock. First off on this match, we've got to say it, Zelina Vega, what a performance.
Oh man, she's so good. I was pleasantly surprised. I've never really seen her in ring before. So I was completely shocked at how good she is, and I hope this is the start of something big for her. She's incredible on the mic, and if she can just equal that skill in the ring, she's going to have a massive career in WWE. As they showed on Raw as well, it sort of looks like they're possibly pushing her for a big babyface run with the what looks like the split from Andrade. So yeah, massive. I mean, the rightful winner in the end for me, Asuka, I think should just keep the belt for a while. But it's good to see that Raw's having a bit of a rejuvenation with their women division, with Becky out and Charlotte not around as well. So yeah, massively impressed with what Zelina Vega did on the night.
Yeah, again, I was massively impressed by her. I think the first time I ever come across Zelina Vega was in the movie about Paige. And she plays the character in the show, and I was a bit like, who is this? And then, yeah, I think on Clash of Champions, she was probably the surprise of the night for me, actually. And recently, obviously, she split up with Andrade and Garza. I was wondering who it's going to impact more. And I thought that maybe she would get shelved. But after that performance, straight away in a title match on a pay-per-view, she held her own and more. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what she's going to do. I was a little bit frustrated, obviously. On Raw, they give her another title match straight away. They could have just, at the end of the match when she goads Asuka into, attacking her, They could have just developed the story a little bit more rather than just putting her straight in the title match. But in terms of that match on that card, I was massively impressed.
Yeah, I thought she was really good. And what I was thinking is when she looked like she was going to break up from Andrade, I wondered if they were going to put her with maybe Aleister Black, because obviously they're in a real life relationship. But I think you've got to keep her on her own after this. She definitely proved that she can definitely go on her own.
I was just going to say, if given the time and the effort, she could get up to those levels of what Alexa Bliss got to. You know, very similar, both great on the mic, both small in stature. She had such great technical work. If they give her the time and the opportunity, she could be as good as what Alexa Bliss was at the top of the card.
Yeah, absolutely. The next match we had was Bobby Lashley defeating Apollo Crews to retain the US title. It seems like we've been stuck in this feud for quite a while now. But what about the Hurt Business? Because they're actually growing on me. I'm really impressed with their work at the moment.
Yeah, I think week to week, they're actually becoming, an integral part of not only Raw but pay-per-views. They're stealing the show almost, like, and the camaraderie they've got in the group with MVP on the mic, Lashley doing the dirty work basically. They've got Benjamin, who's a great tag wrestler, and now they've got the high flyer in Cedric Alexander. So they've got a real good mix and can basically feud with anyone. Obviously, I was expecting at some point Retribution to probably make a show because of obviously the recent feuds they've been having, but due to the pandemic, obviously they were off the card. But for the Hurt Business, it just feels like, as Todd Phillips said in the on commentary, business is booming, and you just feel like they're going from strength to strength each week. So it'd be quite good if they, Retribution obviously are going to be another faction on Raw as long as they don't get drafted. That'd be quite a good rivalry to see play out for a little bit. I'm not a massive Apollo Crews fan. He's had a good run since he's been back, and he's definitely established himself a little bit more on the main roster. But for me, this feud, like you touched on in your intro of the match, it's just been going on for way too long now. They need to freshen it up, and I'm not even really bothered about seeing the Hurt Business fight Mustafa Ali and Ricochet anymore. Let's just move it on and get them involved with someone else.
Yeah, it seems like the theme with Raw is sort of they do need a good rejuvenation, and this is just a case in point for it. They've been fighting each other for what seems like months now. The right people won. Hurt Business just have that sort of shades of evolution in them with the suits and the sort of flashiness, and then they get in the ring and do the nitty gritty stuff. I'm praying they go higher on the card. They've sort of been put between a rock and a hard place, having to now feud looks like Retribution, because you almost need Retribution to go over to establish them. But the Hurt Business are so good, you feel like they should win. But yeah, just massively impressed. I think with Lashley, I think he's actually well underrated, one of the most underrated in WWE. His MMA background can speak for itself. He looks like a star. It's amazing there wasn't more feud with him and Drew at the top, because that would have been amazing. Him and MVP on the mic just going after Drew, very similar to Brock and Heyman. It just works for me, and hopefully they just do move them up the card.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they can get another, even if they got the tag alliance at some point, or just give them a little bit more gold in the group to solidify them as this powerhouse group on Raw. Would be really good for them.
Well, speaking of the tag titles, the Street Profits defeated Andrade and Angel Garza to retain the Raw tag team titles. This match was cut short when it appears that Angel Garza injured his knee. The referee gave the cross sign to indicate there was a legitimate injury, and then on the next pinfall attempt, the referee counted 1, 2, 3, even though Andrade kicked out.
What a botch.
So basically now the Street Profits are the longest reigning tag champions in Raw history, with 208 days and counting.
Wow.
So what do you think of the Street Profits? I mean, they've obviously got this this longest reign of 208 days. What do you think of the reign?
I mean, half of them days must have been when they were having the series with the Viking Experience, the Raiders, or whatever they're called. Where they were doing shot put and basketball and God knows what. So I actually love the Street Profits. I just wish they had some tag teams to go up against. I mean, they've been a little bit unlucky recently because you've had a couple of injuries on the show, and now you've got Garza, who looks like he was out. I mean, there was a couple of spots in the match that were pretty cool. The Spanish fly off the top with Montez Ford and Garza just before he got injured was great. But yeah, they need Raw, or even SmackDown. They need some new tag teams either to come up from NXT or to form some new allegiances because it's just so dead.
It's weird because all the tag teams that come up, they seem to split up and then they throw ones together. So it's quite nice. Sort of the Street Profits have stayed together. Not a massive fan of them, but I think that's purely because just how main roster shows treat tag division. It's hard to get on side of them. I'm almost glad they didn't keep the match with Cesaro and Shin for Clash of Champions. I think that'd been quite a nice, just one-off match between sort of a battle of the brands. Teases up nice for the draft as well. Just having a bit of sort of brand battles. But I mean, for me, just tag division's just a bit sort of dead. It's not the performers' faults. It's just the way they get booked. Hopefully Garza's all right. Yeah, Andrade and Garza growing on me more as a tag team. I actually wanted them to sort of split and just let them both venture into their singles careers, but they are more growing on me.
Yeah, because I think that's the thing. When I said 208 days, I sort of sniggered a bit because they've been tag champs for 208 days, and I can only really remember 2 feuds. Yeah. Seems like they were feuding with Andrade and Angel Garza, then a bit of Viking Raiders in the middle, and then back with them again. But yeah, I'm a fan of Street Profits. I just think WWE's got to give them more to do. Yeah. It seems like, it just seems the same 2 feuds for 208 days is not great reading, is it really? But you touched on it earlier, obviously, Angel Garza's now injured. So Andrade looks like he's going to be going solo. How do you think he's going to do on the main roster, going as a solo act without Zelina Vega as well?
I mean, with the Raw just gone as well, it's not a great start for him because he's got swept to the side by Keith Lee, which was a travesty. I was so angry because Andrade is incredible. Be tough without Zelina because I feel like he needs that mouthpiece. Maybe they just keep him in this tag, but he just sort of, job out or lose these single matches, which I just think is not great for Andrade because he's a phenomenal wrestler. So, I'm not quite sure where they go with him. And like we said earlier, with Zelina, it's sort of like you thought she would be the one shelved, and now you're a bit concerned for Andrade. Maybe this is just the sort of stopgap, and he'll be drafted to SmackDown and have a rejuvenation. But we'll see. Yeah,
because if you think back to when he was in NXT before Zelina Vega came along, he was sort of like opening up the show, wasn't he? It was only when Zelina Vega came along, it sort of could have just been coincidence, but he seemed to go up in the card, and now I do worry where he goes from here.
Because he did that sort of half-assed matches, wasn't it, where he'd lose, didn't care, then just go out on the town, and then that was when Vega came along and sort of set him straight. And he had some incredible title matches down there. The Gargano takeover matches, incredible, beating Drew. There was a lot of positives down there, so it's a shame we never got to see that on the main roster past his sort of US title run.
Yeah, I think there's so much potential there. Maybe he's one that could probably do with a shake-up with the draft coming up. Before discussing the next match, it's probably worth mentioning that Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler and Nikki Cross weren't medically cleared to wrestle on the show and forced changes to the card. Asuka and Zelina Vega were due to be on the pre-show, but instead they moved the SmackDown tag team match to the pre-show. What did you think of that match?
That match was weird because there was nothing wrong with the match. It was a decent match. The right winners won. The Cesaro and Nakamura retained. But I was just watching it like, I really don't care who wins. I was just so like, I'm watching this and just have no opinion on what I think or what I want. I sort of didn't really care. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of agree. It sort of comes into that bracket of the Street Profits where it's just sort of they've been feuding these. It's just like the lack of tag teams through both brands. It sort of stops more feuds from happening, and I think there was a rumour that they were even going to unify the belts, which maybe would have been a good thing, and have them like the women's where they go cross-brand, because at the moment it's just the same people, and it's like now they've won the match, who they're going to feud next, and it's like, well, you look around the SmackDown locker room for tag teams and Miz and Morrison, but they're doing their stuff with Otis and Tucker, so all these tag teams are doing stuff in singles stuff, and it's just all a bit of a mess. So it's just why people just find that lack of care with it.
Yeah, I think as well there was just no real build up to having the match either. It was sort of just put together, and I'm not really surprised it was put on the pre-show, because it would have just been another sort of piss break on the main roster if it was on the Clash of Champions show for me. I actually really like both tag teams. Probably more individually than as tag teams, but yeah, I just could not get excited for it. And I was once the main roster started and you started with that ladder match, it was just like it almost felt like it had gone up a level straight away. So yeah, no more of that for me. Yeah,
I think WWE have got to make the fans want to care about the tag divisions, and whether they do it as two different brands or if they do one belt over two brands, you just got to make us care about it, because at the moment it's almost like a throwaway match. You don't really care. There's not really been any good reigns like up to now. So yeah, fingers crossed with the draft that they can sort that out. But going on to the next match, obviously we touched on it. Nikki Cross wasn't able to compete on Clash of Champions, so Bayley issued an open challenge for the Smackdown Women's title, and out come Asuka, doing double duty again. If in doubt, get Asuka out. And this went to a DQ finish. And then Sasha Banks came out and attacked Bayley with a chair and a kendo stick. So this feud's been going on for quite a while now. Well, they've been threatening to push the button on actually having a match. Do you think it's going to happen at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view?
I mean, what a kick in the gut for Bayley and Sasha. How this wasn't pulled in the main event. The match at SummerSlam is just baffling. And now you've pulled Sasha from TV and you've brought her back so early to carry on this feud for what looks like it's going to now be a match at Hell in a Cell and not a big pay-per-view. I just think it's a massive sort of... They didn't pull the trigger when they should have, and it's just a massive blow for both of them for the work they could have done and should have done. And now we're just going to have a Hell in a Cell match, and I don't know where it goes from there afterwards. And with Asuka coming out, I just think... With the women's division, it was such an opportunity just to give someone, just to build someone, give them a title match like how they've done with Nikki Cross. Just have Lacey Evans come out, even someone like Dana or Natty or Naomi. There's so many you could just reel off. Just to have a good match, keep Sasha away from it, and just have Bayley retain, but just elevate the other women in the division, because they're not doing as much as they should be.
Yeah, this was the real lull in the night for me, because you went from the botch in the tag match to a DQ in a match where I just didn't really want to see Asuka come out. And not only was the DQ from Bayley hitting the chair on Asuka, they could have had Banks just attack her on the outside in the midst of it, and it was just baffling booking once again. But yeah, the question about them fighting at Hell in a Cell, it surely got to happen, because when Bayley attacked Sasha on SmackDown a couple of weeks ago, I just thought that she was going to be off on the shelf for a couple of months, give her a little bit of rest time, let Bayley be really dominant, build her up so that when Sasha comes back, it's like you get that, that excited moment. Now, when she come back on the pay-per-view, I was just like, oh god, here we go again. I think they like Jordan said, by not having them fight at SummerSlam, it's just completely ruined the feud now. And I'm not really excited for it at all. I'd have preferred a slow build up to WrestleMania, make them both really strong. Even the upcoming draft, split them across different brands, and make them be the best, and then fight each other on the best show. So massively disappointed, and I mean I was disappointed for Asuka, because she's just basically been thrown in there again, a little DQ, and out the way again. It's disappointing for all involved, I think.
Yeah, the thing is with the upcoming pay-per-view, which is Hell in a Cell, I guess you need to have sort of a match that's sort of been a big feud going on, like a blood match sort of thing. And when you look across like the card, I guess that is probably the one that sort of has been going on and building up for a while. And they're the sort of matches which should end up being in a Hell in a Cell match. But at the same time, like you said, we probably want this at WrestleMania. We don't want it on a Hell in a Cell like a B sort of card. We want it on the best show. So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think there's been rumours that it has been leaked that they are gonna fight a Hell in a Cell, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it should definitely be a big four pay-per-view match. Anything else is just I think it's sort of heartbreaking for them. I think for the work they were doing, especially post Mania and hitting the pandemic. They were really running the shows. They were on both the main, prime time. To now just see them fall to this sort of Hell in a Cell throwaway is a bit of a shame.
Okay, the next match was Drew McIntyre defeating Randy Orton to retain his WWE Championship in an ambulance match. This match featured run-ins from legends such as The Big Show, Christian and Shawn Michaels, and a little cameo from Ric Flair who drove the ambulance out. What did you think of this match?
For me, I actually loved the match. Not so much the run-ins from the four guys that you've just said, but I mean the reason I say that is because as a face champion, I feel like it's made Orton almost look stronger that he's had to have four guys help him out and to win the match. But it was a really weird predicament at the start of the match because Orton was going into a title match on a pay-per-view after having lost to the last two pay-per-views, one clean to Drew and one on pay-per-view following SummerSlam to Keith Lee. So he was going into this match either going to lose 3 pay-per-view matches in a row or become a record equaling 14-time world champion with Triple H. So I didn't actually know which way it was going to go, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I liked the spots with the Claymore kick on the door of the ambulance. I liked it when Drew got smashed through the windscreen and you could properly see his back had been shredded by the glass. I don't really want to talk about the Shawn Michaels super kick because super kicks and wrestling these days is just not something that I think is great. It's just the most overused soft move now. Whereas back in the day, like Shawn Michaels when he hit it on Bret Hart at Mania, you knew it was over. It's like almost like the Claymore kick now. It's just been elevated to such a good move that when he hits it, the match is over. But even the ending of the match was absolutely superb. I love the way that he Claymore kicked him. He threw him in the ambulance. You thought that was it was over, but he drags his carcass out, punts him in the head, and then smashes the ambulance doors closed to retain. So not only was I happy that he won, I was happy that it was quite a brutal match. And I was happy that after you get a feud that's been going on for so long, and it was quite a personal feud. They were attacking each other. It's just great that it ends. I just loved it. It was a brutal finish, to be fair.
Yeah, I actually I really like the legend stuff. I like the narrative of it, sort of the karma coming back for Orton and sort of stopping him from getting his belt. When you sort of saw the theme of these guys he beat up coming back, I did sort of have two thoughts in my mind of, are we going to have Edge come back and sort of help McIntyre win, or is Ric Flair going to be the legendary dirtiest player of the game as we all know him as and help Randy even through it all take the belt? But yeah, I like the narrative. I'm glad Drew's stayed champ. I think he's an excellent WWE champion. So yeah, hopefully this is now feud over. Let's move him on to another, hopefully the Hurt Business.
Yeah, what you were saying about Edge, I think the internet or Twitter in particular was blowing up because I think he was actually trending that he was going to come back, and it did seem like it was going to happen the longer the match went on.
Okay, the main event time. The Tribal Chief Roman Reigns defeated his cousin Jay Uso to retain his Universal Championship. Lads, this was a quality match in my opinion. Do you guys agree?
It was so good. Just to see this side of Roman was just epic. It just begs the question why they've waited so long for this to happen. It was just, I'm amazed how much sort of licks they let Jay get in and put down Roman. I think it showed Jay can be a main event caliber superstar. We all know how good he is in the Usos. So it was good to see him at this level. I wasn't too sure how it would go down. I was expecting sort of a squash, but the heel work of Roman was excellent. I even loved it when Heyman was shouting him, going, "You are the Tribal Chief," and he just started shouting at him aggressively. Like,
that was great.
Those little things just added to it, and I imagine, I think long-term booking, I keep seeing rumours of Rock and Roman at Mania, which would be that would be the Tribal Chief off. that would be insane. But yeah, quality by Roman. Long may this continue.
Yeah, I thought the build up to it was actually really good, and I watched the chronicle that they did on Jay Uso before the fight, and it did actually really build it up nicely. And you don't realise how many connections, like family connections, they've got in the business. But when he was in the ring, Jay Uso, and then you just heard like I'm so glad that on his entrance they didn't change his theme tune, because when it just went dun, it was like business is about to pick up. And then you see him walk out, and he's biffed off the shield vest, and you just saw him, and he just looked like a proper beast. It was almost like Brock Lesnar was standing next to Paul Heyman, like with his physique, and you just knew that it was going to be so good. I was worried initially it was just going to be a bit of a squash, and that after watching the ambulance match, because it was so good, that they had a lot to live up to, and I think they did, and maybe even surpassed that performance, because not that the wrestling wasn't great, but the storyline and like you say, him talking to Heyman, him, the really family affair bit at the end where Jimmy comes out and has to get on his body, where he's just absolutely savaging him. I just thought it was excellent, and I'm all for this Roman Reigns. I wondered when he beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania, and then he cut that promo the next night on Raw where he was getting booed out of the arena for 4 or 5 minutes, and he just said, "This is my yard now," whether they missed the opportunity for him to go heel. But I'm sort of glad in a way that they saved it for this, because teaming him with Heyman's just a stroke of genius, and I'm just looking forward to this. If he fights The Rock at WrestleMania, that is going to be, that is going to be unreal.
Yeah, I think now he's got this character change. There's so many sort of opportunities and different ways they can go with this. So I'm fully behind it. I thought it was a great match, great storytelling, lovely build-up, and lovely way to end the pay-per-view. I thought, looking back on the pay-per-view, I thought it was a really good event actually. There's only one title change, but I think it sort of did what it needed to. Carried on the stories, ended certain feuds, built up on others. So I enjoyed it. You guys feel the same?
Yeah, it was a great pay-per-view. I was thoroughly entertained throughout. The title change, you could argue that he retained, depending on whose side you're on. But it was just, I think the right people, the booking was just correct on it. So hopefully going on to this Hell in a Cell follows suit. I was just thinking, as we're speaking about Roman at the end, I'd just love if they just put him in a Hell in a Cell with both the Usos and he just killed them. It would just be so good. But great pay-per-view.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was an okay pay-per-view. I loved the two main event matches, and I loved the ladder match at the start, but the bit in the middle was a little bit of filler for me. But like any pay-per-view, you sort of got to have a little bit of that along the way. We didn't really touch on the 24/7 championship, and I think it's just as well, because I bloody hate that championship, and I think R-Truth's now 41-time champion. It's just an absolute travesty that gets any airtime for me. But you were falling asleep a little bit in the middle. Well, I was at 2 o'clock in the morning, and the last two matches just absolutely saved the show a little bit, and it was actually difficult to sleep after that, because you were just so buzzing that Roman Reigns he's just beast mode now. I'm just can't wait to see what's going to happen with his character moving forward.
Brilliant. So that will end our very first Pinfall podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Please let us know your thoughts either in the comments below, or you can tweet us at the Pinfall Pod. Thank you very much. That's the Pinfall. Ring the bell.